everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Ungrownups video transmission. I'm your host, Mark, and today we're going to be taking a look at the NECA, I believe Wave 2, Pacific Rim, Gypsy Danger Jaeger, and the Kaiju Leatherback. Now, I've pretty much stayed away from this line. I saw the first wave hit stores, wasn't that impressed with the paint, with the articulation, from what I'd seen in a bunch of reviews, and I pretty much stayed away. Gypsy Danger didn't come with any sort of weaponry at all. And of course the Jaegers are sort of known for their weapons, so that kind of put me off, that and the paint apps. I wasn't really impressed with the Gypsy Danger that came out in Wave 1. This of course is the one from Wave 2. It says battle damage. You can also see he comes with his saw swords right here on the side. And while the knife head Kaiju from Wave 1 looked really cool, this guy was my favorite from the movie. This Kaiju Leatherback was one of my favorites. And he definitely didn't have this size. The knife head came in the same size package as the Jaegers did. It was just much deeper. It was a much deeper package. But here you can see this package is almost it's almost 1.5 times the size of this one here. And the really cool thing, both of these guys, I just bought them last night. Both of them were $16.99 at Toys R Us. I thought for sure, yeah, this guy, $16.99. This guy is going to be $24.99 or even $19.99. I figured he'd be more. He's twice as much plastic. Surely he is going to be a little bit more. Nope, $16.99. So that's crazy. And look at the size of this thing. I mean, you can hear how it's just as heavy as it can be. And it's just massive. Now, I will tell you one thing to look out for. I was in Toys R Us last night when I found these figures. They had 2 of these guys. They must come 2 in a case because it looked like they just put the entire case out because they had a ton of this guy, a ton of Striker Eureka, which is the other figure released in this wave. And they only had 2 of these guys. And one of them, the leg was broken in the package. It was broken. It was the left leg. It was broken right at the hip. It was just laying loose down in the package, down in the bottom. I'm not going to say that that's indicative of every figure. Clearly it's not. Here's one that's not like that. But I'm just saying that seems to be something that can happen. So be very careful when you're buying these guys in stores. Check your Kaiju. Make sure that the leg is not broken. That's like a public service announcement. Always make sure you check your Kaiju. So spinning it around here on the back, you see a nice big picture of Gypsy Danger right there. You see all the figures that were released in Wave 1. Gypsy Danger, Knife Head, and Crimson Tycoon. Tycoon. What am I talking about? It's like a video game. Crimson Tycoon. That'd be kind of cool. We actually really need a Pacific Rim video game. Somebody get on that. You can see here Leatherback and Striker Eureka. So this one has the cross sale for the other 2 figures in Wave 2. So I think we are getting a Wave 3 with Chernobyl. What's that guy's name? Why can't Chernobyl Alpha? I think we are getting that guy, and I'm sure they'll throw another Kaiju at us at some point. Yeah, why don't we get these guys cracked open and take a closer look, because I am really ready to get my hands on big robots and big monsters. Okay, now that we've gotten both of these figures opened up and out of all that clamshell, good God, NECA, you're killing me with the clamshell. These guys are absolutely fantastic. I am a huge fan of not only Guillermo del Toro, but kaiju films and big robot films. He made this movie for me. It is a lot of fun from the get-go. It's got its problems. It's got its writing and acting issues, no doubt. But this is a spectacle. I mean, you go to this film to see huge robots and huge monsters fighting, and in that regard, the movie does not fail at all. So I've been such a huge fan of the film. I've really been wanting to get into this action figure line, but I've seen a bunch of reviews. I've seen the figures in person, and just the toys have not done it for me yet. But finally, I think NECA is getting this line right. I think they're starting to do things properly, and so I'm now getting all on board. So this is a remake of the original Gypsy Danger figure that was released in Wave 1. This is what they call the battle damage Gypsy Danger. So his paint apps are darker. He's got a lot of scuffing and a lot of battle damage painted on. He also comes with these swords, which I thought the first figure should have come with. And before you ask, since I don't have the first figure to show you, you cannot put these swords on that figure. The little notches that they fit into on the back of the gauntlet simply aren't there on the original figure. So unless you modified that figure somehow, you couldn't simply just put these chainsaw swords on that figure. That also being said, these things are very, very fragile. I've seen other reviews where the reviewer has actually broken the saw blades or the sword blade trying to actually fit it in there. They're very flimsy pieces of plastic, and you will snap them and break them off no problem, and they're not in there all that well. So while they do look really cool standing around, you're not going to be able to play with them very much inside the gauntlet, and they both just kind of wiggle right out, and they come out pretty easily, and they're not in very well once they're in. So other than that, the swords and the paint apps is the exact same figure as before. And while we have this big guy, we have such a wide shot, I just want to show you. This is Leatherback. This is the big kaiju that they fought in the ocean, if I'm not mistaken. And this guy is pretty fantastic. I was a huge fan of Knifehead in the film as well, but when I saw that Knifehead figure being so small in Wave 1, I was like, no way I'm spending money on that. But this guy, well, the fact that I love gorillas, and this guy looks like a big old gorilla to me, was definite purchase. Now, I have seen, since I actually bought these figures and now getting around to doing the review, I've actually seen pictures from the Wave 3 version of Knifehead. They're having a new one, a battle damage Knifehead, and he's built more like this. He's this size. He's more bulky. He's like twice as big as the Knifehead that came out in Wave 1. So I may be picking up that Knifehead along with some of the other Jaegers that are coming out, which is pretty fantastic. So these guys look great together. They look great squared off against one another. I think they're an adequate size. I'm sure that this kaiju would be bigger. I'm sure he would probably stand and be out of frame. But I believe that his bulk, and his heft is a pretty good size matchup with Gypsy Danger over here. So I'm okay with him being a little more squatty, and since he's kind of bending over as well. So I'm okay with the height differentiation here. I think it's pretty decent. So why don't we zoom in and take a closer look at each one of these figures in much greater detail before we get on to the articulation. Okay, zooming in here on Gypsy Danger, you will see that, first and foremost, I'd like to point out that my camera, for whatever reason, has a tendency to brighten colors. So anybody who saw my Superman Man of Steel review knows that, and if you happen to have that figure, that my review, his suit was like super vibrant, super bright colored, but when you actually buy him and get him in hand, he's actually very dark, very muted. And that's the exact same thing here for Gypsy Danger. On my camera, I can see that's coming across very bright blue. This orange is very bright and very pronounced, but in hand, this figure is actually very muted. The colors are very dark, and that's a dark, dirty orange. Not nearly that orange. It's actually more yellow in hand, and the suit is the armor is a very deep, muted, pale blue, not this beautiful, vibrant blue that he actually is on camera. Looking at it on camera, I wish I had the figure that was on camera, not the one in my hand. But, you know, you can see a lot of the scarring and scuffing. There's been a huge amount of black wash and even some gunmetal or silver grayish dry brushing all over this figure. You can see there's quite a bit of damage painting done. Having not owned any of the Gypsy Danger figures from before, there's not a lot to compare it to. I have seen that figure in hand in stores, and he does look nice, but without the just the lack of weapons for me just made it to where I didn't want to pick that figure up. But you know, looking at it here, you can see fair amount of weathering and damage done throughout. They carry that through. I think that adds a lot to these Jaegers, especially Gypsy Danger, who's supposed to be one of the oldest, and you know, the only last surviving nuclear version left of the Jaeger program. So continuing to turn it around here. Whoops. You can see lots of detail sculpted and painted on. Really dig this. The paint apps and the sculpting in this figure. And I think where this figure sort of lacks in articulation, I think the sculpting and the paint apps make up for it. One of the other differences that I've noticed too with the original Gypsy Danger and this version is you can see the yellow warning bands that are like here and here. They're actually you know, yellow and black, whereas on the first Gypsy Danger, the black was missing. It was just yellow. So I think that's a nice little addition they made between that figure and this one. It's probably something they missed in the first one, and they wanted to make sure they got in the second one. But you can see that black and silver damaged paint app all the way, carried all the way throughout this entire figure. No detail missed. It just looks absolutely fantastic. The figure in hand, just looking at it, looks a lot more expensive and looks a lot more articulated than it actually is. I think because of it being a big, bulky robot with big, chunky robot parts, you sort of the articulation points, the hinges and joints and stuff are very well hidden, and I think it makes the figure look more expensive than the $16 that it actually costs, which is pretty cool. So let's move over to the Kaiju Leatherback, because he is pretty cool. Okay, we may have to do this in stages because this guy is pretty big. First and foremost, you can see that his mouth sort of opens. It's a very visible hinge, and you can see bright blue paint, silvery, reflective kind of paint on the inside, which is really nice. You can see a nice greenish kind of glowing section right here between his eyes, between the plates on his forehead, just like in the film. It looks pretty fantastic. And right here on the back, you can see some pretty stiff tentacles coming out the back like hair, which is pretty cool. Very detailed, just like in the film. I have to back this guy up a little bit, I think, or maybe even take the camera off the tripod, because I hate moving the camera on the tripod. Maybe we'll just look at the figure. I'll keep it picked up. You can see some nice paint apps here on the belly, carrying out that Kaiju power lines. I don't know what else to call them. This is a design element that Guillermo really likes. He did this on the some of the tattoo work that you saw on Azog, who is the big pale orc from Lord of the Rings, or the Hobbit, because that was a character designed by Guillermo when he was going to direct the film before Peter took it over. And you remember that you saw this on the Dark Elves in Hellboy 2, and added to both Hellboy's chest and arms and the Right Hand of Doom when he did Hellboy. So these swirly, curly lines is just a design element that Guillermo really likes, that he carries through his films. So kind of good to see them show back up here again. These arms look like tree trunks, and these just look like sort of paint on tree trunks, which looks really cool. And you can see the nice bumpiness on the arms. Lots of detail in there, and then you can see just like knot upon knot upon knot on the hands. It's just this thick armor that almost looks like a mace or a morning star or something like that. It's pretty fantastic. Kind of carries throughout. These are some awesome hands. This is probably my favorite design of all the kaiju. I love things that look like gorillas. I love King Kong, big monkeys, big gorillas, and this thing is pretty much the kaiju version of a silverback, so I love that. You can see nice detail on the armor plating on his back, kind of carried down throughout his nubby little tail. Lots of skin wrinkles and folds right above the hips. Kind of carried throughout on the feet. Looks pretty fantastic. And you can see some nice paint work done on the back. And the really cool thing about the paint on the swirls is that it's a blue kind of silvery, so it actually reflects light. It's not just painted. It's just not a flat color, which is really kind of cool. Nice big spike on the elbow there. Sorry if this is bouncing in and out of focus. I'm kind of holding this figure and moving it around. You can see he's quite impressive. This is a very nice kaiju figure. Very also reminiscent of the creatures that were in Hellboy as well. The whatever they were called, I can't remember. But very nice. I love this design, and I love the brightness in that eye. You can see that eye just piercing through the darkness of that face. Pretty fantastic. But I think the sculpting and the paintwork on this guy is definitely the highlight of the figure, besides of his just sheer mass and overall design, because he's pretty lacking in articulation. So why don't we take a look at that? Okay, so since I haven't purchased any of these figures before, I definitely want to go over the articulation points with you. First off, you've got a 360, sort of ball joint here at the ab crunch. Nothing below that. You can go all the way around with the shoulder articulation. It feels like it's on a ball joint, so that's pretty cool. You can't really go out that far with it, though. It feels like it would pop right off. You do have a single joint at the elbow, no sort of cut joints anywhere else, and the wrist is on a ball joint as well. Same thing for this arm here. You can go forward and backwards with this leg joint, and you can go out a little bit, and that's pretty loose right there as well. You have a single articulation point at the knee, which is a disgrace. This figure is screaming for a double articulation point. It would be really nice to see that. And then here at the foot's on a really nice ball joint, which you can rock back and forth and go up and down. You also have this kind of weird articulation point where the foot, the heel of the foot, is on a separate ball joint. I'm not sure what the purpose of that is. Maybe it's to give you some extra placement when you know, hunkering this guy down and flat on the ground, and it does kind of work, so maybe it's not all that odd to begin with. So very nice articulation in the legs, could be better, and I would really like to see more articulation in the arms, especially with, you know, a big robot that was supposed to be so maneuverable and so nimble. But yeah, pretty nice articulation here. Could be better, but not bad. Okay, looking at the articulation on this big bad boy here. The head can rotate. It can't go up or down at all. It's not on any kind of a ball joint. And turning the head to the side, you can see that the mouth does open. And that's a very, very nice touch. Spinning around here on the back, this looks like it does something, but it's just sculpted outward, and it's a very sturdy plastic and actually very pointy and sharp, so it feels very sturdy, which is really cool. The arms are not on a ball joint, they're just on a cut joint, so they can only go up. So when the arms kind of go up, I'll show you, it actually brings the hands together since the shoulders angle in this way. So since it's on this kind of an angle, the higher up you go with them, the closer together they become. And this is going to look very awkward, but I definitely want to pull his arms all the way out to his side in a very unnatural pose, just so you can kind of see how they articulate and what this guy looks like when you stand him up. Nice big bloated sort of abdomen, very much like a silverback gorilla belly right there. Have a single joint right here at the elbow. No rotation at all, which I think is a missed opportunity. A huge ball joint in the middle of each of these elbows would have been perfect for letting this guy articulate all over the place. The hand is also not on a ball joint. It's on a single cut joint, which is kind of odd. But the nice articulation on the arm comes in the hand when you can articulate both the thumb and all three of the fingers individually. They don't move that much, but when, you know, this guy's only grabbing Jaeger arms and Jaeger legs, and probably Jaeger bombs, I don't know, then they don't have to articulate that much. But very nice sculpting just throughout, I mean, which we've already looked at. It's just fantastic. The point here where I would be the most careful would be the legs, because like I said, when I saw this guy in the package, the other one in the store was broken right here and the leg was laying off. So the legs feel like they're on a pseudo ball joint. They can move sort of all over the place, just not that far. Their range of motion is very limited. And then you got this very limited knee joint here, and the foot is on its own bendy joint, and then the foot also rotates. So some huge noticeable joints going on down here in the legs, but they're the least looked at part of the figure. So not altogether that bad. I think he articulates in the spots where he needs to, but it could always be better. Okay, I really just can't say enough about these figures. They're pretty fantastic. I mean, they do have their shortcomings. They have things, you know, parts and pieces on them that I wish were better articulated here and there. But, you know, for having missed out on Wave 1 intentionally, and been really looking forward to Wave 3, I'm really happy with Wave 2 and how it's shaping up. I really like these big robots and these big monsters, and I thank NECA for giving them to me in such great detail. These things are pretty fantastic. So that's going to about do it for this review. If you dug it, please like, comment, or subscribe, and be sure to check out all of our other video transmission action figure reviews right here on YouTube.com. Just search for The Ungrownups. Until next time, peace.